Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the July 15 meeting of the Ann Arbor City Council. Please rise, if you are able. Join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. And a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Would our clerk please call the roll of council?
Councilmember Dish?
Here.
Councilmember Harrison? Absent. Councilmember Song? Absent. Councilmember Watson? Absent. Councilmember Medina?
Here.
Councilmember Ghazi Edwin?
Here.
Mayor Taylor?
Here.
Councilmember Iyer?
Here.
Councilmember Ackman?
Here.
Councilmember Briggs?
Here.
Councilmember Cornell? Here. We have a quorum.
May I have a motion, please, to approve the agenda? Moved by Councilmember Ghazi Edwin, seconded by Councilmember Dish. Discussion of the agenda. All in favor? All opposed? The agenda is approved. Do we have communications today from our city administrator?
Not this evening, Mayor.
Well, then, we do have two introductions today. First, if folks would come join me at the podium, please, for a proclamation celebrating Disability Pride Month. Come on up.
Sure, I gotta stay next to that.
Excellent. I'm so glad that you all are here, and now they can come join me today. You can turn around for the camera. If you, perfect. There you go. Excellent.
Hey, I can't say nothing, so you know how that goes.
That's all right. So we are delighted to gather here today to commemorate Disability Pride Month, July, which is a celebration of the diverse experiences, perspectives, and contributions that folks with disabilities add to the world. And I'm delighted to in addition to folks up here who have instigated this, by Councilmember Ghazi Edwin, who is an initiator of this proclamation. So whereas Disability Pride Month strives to destigmatize disability as a negative, unnatural aspect of life and to foster understanding and acceptance of that part of our identities. And whereas Disability Pride Month is a reminder that we are more than our disabilities and that disability intersects with other celebratory characteristics of our identities, including race, ethnicity, gender identity, sexual orientation, religion, and other factors. Whereas people with disabilities are the largest minority group in America and one of the largest minority groups in the world. And whereas the month of July also acknowledges the passage of the Americans with Disabilities Act, which protects the disability community from discrimination, particularly as it relates to voting, employment, transportation, public accommodation, communication, and access to state and local government programs and services. Whereas living with disabilities can be difficult and isolating, Disability Pride Month is an opportunity to recognize the strengths and achievements of people with disabilities in the LGBTQ community. Now, therefore, I, Christopher Taylor, Mayor of Ann Arbor, do hereby proclaim the month of July 2024 as Disability Pride Month in the city of Ann Arbor. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mayor, members of council. As chairman of the Ann Arbor Commission on Disability Issues, it is my distinct honor to congratulate the esteemed colleagues of Detroit Disability Power for this monumentous proclamation recognizing Disability Pride Month and adopted by the city of Ann Arbor. This proclamation is not just a symbolic gesture, but it is a great advance for rights and inclusion of people with disabilities. It celebrates our achievements and it acknowledges our struggles, but it also amplifies our voices in the ongoing fight for equity and justice. As someone who is born with a disability, this recognition holds a profound personal significance. I've experienced firsthand the challenges and triumphs of what this embodies. So I encourage all of us to keep inclusivity in mind. This proclamation is a reminder of how far we have come, but also how much more we must do. So I urge our city, our state, and our country to keep disability rights at the forefront of our thoughts and actions. Let us build on this proclamation by implementing policies and practices that ensure full participation and equal opportunities for all. And let us strive to create environments where every individual, regardless of their abilities, is included. And let this proclamation be a call to action, a pledge to work tirelessly until every barrier is dismantled and every person with a disability is afforded the dignity, the respect, and the opportunities they deserve. Congratulations again to Detroit Disability Power, and thank you to the City of Ann Arbor for your unwavering support. Let us move forward with pride, determination, and an undenying commitment to disability rights. Thank you.
Can I give this to you?
Go ahead, Larry.
Oh, I think I've just been working with the commission for probably the longest time since 2011, and we've got a lot of work done, and I'm glad we are seeing it become nationwide, some of the work. So, I mean, he's our chair, so he's the real speaker. But as vice chair, I'm glad to be assisting the movement.
Thank you.
Just on your left here, Larry. Your right. Good evening, everybody. I'm Alex Gossage. I'm the Executive Director for Disability Network, Washtenaw, Monroe, Livingston. Thank you for having us this evening. Thank you for this proclamation. I know for better or for worse, Art Fair is coming up, and I'm thrilled this year that some art from our artists in our community is available for folks to see, and we look forward to more celebrations to come this month. We do have an ADA celebration event on July 26th from 3 to 7 at our offices at 3941 Research Park Drive. It's free for all. Everybody's invited, so we hope to see some of you there. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you.
We now have an introduction from the Executive Director of the Downtown Development Authority, the indomitable Maura Thompson. Ms. Thompson, you have the con.
Thank you. I'm going to wait for my technical help, which... Oh, here we go. Thank you, Marcus. Sorry, I get a little anxious when I have my technical difficulties. So nice to see everybody here tonight. So tonight what I wanted to share with you all is some information on the annual work that the DDA takes on both the TIF side and the parking side in terms of repairs. So this is work that is outside of our major capital projects, and I would equate this work, if you're a homeowner, to work on your home, like replacing your roof or maybe doing some plumbing or foundation work. So it's work that's critical to maintaining the integrity of your home, but it's not work where you maybe feel like you see the results like a new kitchen. So this is work that is critical to both of these systems, but it is rather dry and not super exciting to talk about. So I ask you to bear with me as I go through these things. So on the TIF side, we invest over $500,000 a year in repairs in our downtown. Some examples of those things, if I could move my slide. Let's see, whoops. Guess I can do it that way, okay. Sorry about that. So general repairs. We take on quite a few general repairs in our system, in the TIF system, and some of these repairs are due to work that private utilities do in the right-of-way. So an example that I have up here is work that was done on Detroit Street. Private utilities are required to restore the area to its original condition. However, that doesn't always happen in a timely manner. So the DDA monitors these things. This is an example of work that stayed the way you see it in the before picture for probably close to a year. We will not let this sit indefinitely. So we recently went in and repaired that work. Some more egregious examples. Oh, dear. I'm so sorry. Okay, here we go. Some more egregious examples of these repairs I have up here on the slide. So that's Huron Street and State Street. And you can see that leaving all of these pavers and indentation in the sidewalk, these are safety issues. They're also just a poor reflection on our downtown. These repairs sat for 3 to 4 months. I'm happy to report that the private utilities did come back and they repaired Huron Street, and just last week they came and did the repair on State Street. We were closely monitoring the State Street repair because with Art Fair this week, we would not leave that in that state. So we are working, DDA staff and city staff are working closely to come up with a process where this work gets taken care of in a more timely fashion while the private utilities are held accountable for taking care of this work. All right, I'm going to very carefully try to move this. Nope. Okay, here we go. We are also doing sidewalk brick replacement. This is work that we have been doing over the past 3 to 4 years where we're systematically replacing all of the brick that's in the walking zone of the sidewalk. Although that brick is very attractive, it is very difficult to maintain. It presents a lot of trip hazards and it's really slippery when it's wet. So we have been going in and replacing that brick with flags of concrete. There are some areas where there are sidewalk vaults underneath and we are not able to touch those areas, but we are trying to replace all of the walking zone that has brick. My brain just doesn't work like that. We are also taking on this year some modifications to enhance accessibility. So this is on First Street along the bikeway corridor. We are making modifications to all of the crossing areas. So what you see up here on the screen is First and Kingsley. We will be taking on that area as well as 9 additional crossings. So what we will be doing is we will be adding truncated domes. That's really just that bumpy area you see at every crosswalk. So we will be adding additional strips to all of those areas. And this will allow people who rely on tactile cues for navigating to get around more easily. And this was brought to our attention when we worked with the visual impairment team from WISD when we were designing State Street. As our first curbless street, we wanted to consult with them. And in the course of those conversations, they brought to our attention that on First Street, there were some enhancements we could make that would improve the experience. I just can't get it. We also are responsible for landscape maintenance in our project areas. We maintain the landscaping for the first 3 years of the project. So as you can see here, this is State Street. Those plants originally did not thrive, as the before picture reflects. We went in and replaced all of that landscaping, and it looks quite beautiful in that neighborhood right now. And finally, on the TIF side, the DDA is responsible for all of the amenity zones in the sidewalk downtown. So that is that area from the curb to the walking zone. Our focus this year is going to be on North 4th Ave, which is the first photo. That area is in desperate need of some attention. So we will be reconstructing that amenity zone. We will also be expanding the tree pits, adding tree grates similar to what you see in that second photo. And if you've ever noticed on North 4th, those trees have not been thriving over the years. They've been replaced, still not doing so well, and we believe it's because those tree pits are just too small. We need to expand them so that the roots have the ability to thrive. Now we will switch gears and talk about the parking system, where we will be investing approximately $1.3 million, and that should say FY25. That's in this year. A lot of the work that we will be doing will mainly be focused in the 4th and Washington structure and the Liberty Square structure, and it's concrete work. Concrete cracks, as you see in these photos, we cannot leave them. As the weather changes, those cracks expand, and they jeopardize the integrity of the structures. So we go in every year throughout the whole system, we prioritize, and we do a lot of concrete work. This year, we're also doing trench drains or installing trench drains in the 4th and Washington Street structure. And this, if you aren't super familiar with how this works, I just want to walk you through a little bit. That first photo is a pathway at 4th and Washington. You can see that it's exposed to the elements on one side. How it's supposed to work when we get a heavy rain is the rain comes in, it flows down that path, it leads to the drain. In that second photo, you can see the drain, which then leads to a storm drain. That had been working over the years. In the last few years, we've seen it's either a change in weather patterns or just a change in the intensity of the rain that we're getting. Because the rain that we're seeing come in, that drainage is just not enough to accommodate all of the rain. So the rain flows down that pathway and it dead ends into the elevator. That triggers our elevators to not work, which means we have to do an expensive elevator repair. So we are installing trench drains, which I cut and pasted there, which will go across that pathway and will be able to accommodate much more water. We're also installing 1.8 acres of deck coating, and that's just in one structure. So these are the things that we don't expect our parking patrons to come in and appreciate the deck coating, but it's work that has to be done. And finally, we will be doing maintenance work on the fire suppression system, which is, of course, critical. We're also working on quite a few joint sealants throughout both facilities, and we'll be doing a lot of waterproofing work. All of this work in the parking system is being done to maintain these really critical city assets and also to provide a seamless experience for our parking patrons. We don't want our parking patrons to have a memorable experience in our structure. Typically, if somebody has a memorable parking experience, it is not a good one. Anyway, that is all I have. I'm not even going to go to my thank you slide because I'll probably screw it up. So thank you for your time.
Well, let me supplement by saying thank you. We now come to public comment general time. Public comment general time is an opportunity for members of the public to speak to council and the community about matters of municipal interest. To speak at public comment general time, one needs to have signed up in advance by contacting our city clerk. Speakers in all instances will have 3 minutes in which to speak, so please pay close attention to the time. Our clerk or the time clock will notify you when 30 seconds are remaining and when your time has expired. When your time has expired, please conclude your remarks and cede the floor. Our first speaker today is James Shireen.
Good evening. My name is James Sheeran, and I'm a longtime homeowner in the area that is east of Hill and south of Geddes and bordered by Devonshire. And the first thing that I wanted to do is address the consent agenda item 5 on the Carbon Reduction Program grant. And I know from descriptions that there's been a tremendous amount of work that the city staff has done and council members have done. So first of all, I want to thank all of the members here for all of the work that's been done on this. So it's with some trepidation that I approach a change in the work or purchase agreement as proposed. For those that don't know, there's going to be a stipulation of 1 wattage, 58 watts for everywhere. And just around my house, I have 4 lights shining in, 2 into my bedroom and 2 more into my house. And I don't want to make this kind of a personal thing. Some of the notes, since I'm going first here, is that it is the proposal would detract from the neighborhood and quite possibly our home values. The cost for the 58 watt opposed to the alternative 29 watt is something to consider, and also the energy usage is inconsistent with the A20 goals. But I want to bring to you a perspective that might be unique to our neighborhood and might not come to your mind. And that is the following. You might have noticed, particularly this year, that the sky has become kind of a unifying attractor for communities. People that are strangers come together and look up. And we saw this on April 8th. About 32 million, it is reported, traveled some distance, hours I know, to witness a 4-minute event. And they did this with strangers. And it was rather unifying to see people that we had never come across shoulder to shoulder witnessing this. More to the point, in our own neighborhood, on May 10th, there was the greatest auroral storm in 103 years. At your convenience, I encourage you to go to YouTube and type in Aurora over Michigan Medicine. And it's a wonderful movie of what was going on directly overhead. And in our neighborhood, we have perhaps, that's the end. So anyway, I want to recommend to you that it's a sense of community that a light, pollution-free sky offers.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Leslie Mason.
Hello, I'm Leslie Mason. I live just north of Scioto Church Road in the Dickon neighborhood. And I really came to speak about the high-pressure sodium replacement throughout the city with 58-watt LED bulbs. Right now, I ran out and did some calculations based on your purchase order. 73% of the lights that need replacement are 100-watt high-pressure sodium lights, which are mostly found in residential areas, including mine, and are recommended to be replaced with that 27-watt replacement being offered. 27 of those lights are a 58-watt LED replacement recommendation. So I just wanted to state that installing all 58-watt LEDs is going to dramatically overlight the residential areas of Ann Arbor. 58-watt LEDs are typically used for 4-lane highways and roadways, which is really not what our residential areas qualify as. People who buy or rent in those areas know that they have lower lighting levels and lower traffic when they buy those houses in those areas. A 50-watt replacement is a recommendation for main corridors, which usually are lined mostly with businesses but may be mixed with other residential areas. But the people who buy and live in those residential areas or rent there already know that they're moving to a place that has higher lighting and potentially more traffic. Overlighting also has many detrimental outcomes for our residents as well as the environment. There's an increased cost to pay for the 58-watt bulbs. Installing the 27-watt LEDs would result in significant cost savings for the long term, not just the short term. Lowered quality of life. When Ann Arbor residents are trying to sleep, the brighter light will seep into your house. I have actually experienced this a couple months ago. Last summer, they installed a much brighter light in front of my house. I immediately noticed it. I could not sleep at night. It was lighting up the entire inside of my bedroom. My neighbors actually likened it to having a spotlight shining in their window at night. So lack of sleep has been proven to result in other ill effects over time, including the possibility of developing cancer, heart disease, diabetes, and obesity. So there are health reasons for the residents not to be doing this. Also, it is working in opposition to the current lighting ordinance. The concern is that the 58-watt bulbs exceed the current lighting ordinance, and installing only 58-watt bulbs could cause other people to not pay attention to the lighting ordinance. There are also other effects on the environment, including increased night glow and increased carbon footprint, which, due to the energy they use, is in opposition to the goals of 820. The inability of trees to react to going into dormancy for some of them. So I believe that I want to promote ordering the 27-watt bulb as the starting point and to light the neighborhoods correctly. Let's go ahead and light the corridors more. So thank you very much. I appreciate your time.
Thank you. Our next speaker is James Damore.
Mr. Damore is on Zoom. Mr. Damore, phone number ending in 411. You can press *6 to unmute your phone. Mr. Damore, press *6 to unmute your phone. Mr. Damore?
Now, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Sorry about that, Mr. Mayor.
All good.
My name is James Damore, and as you know, I have appeared before you. These are issues related to environment and sustainability issues, and tonight is no different. I want to take this from a personal perspective and basically just kind of tell you the story how I came to Ann Arbor in the first place. And I came because I came as a student at the University of Michigan. I loved it so much, I lived here. So I came here as an astronomy major. And I did so because I loved scanning the skies as a kid. I wanted to be an astronaut, but seeing the Milky Way has always gendered something in me. At any rate, I certainly much sympathize with the efforts of the Dark Skies Initiative. And with that, I read with great interest that CA5 was coming before you this evening on the consent agenda. I want to take this in terms of a sustainability aspect. I realize that we're working hard in terms of 820 goals, but much of sustainability is not just simply pedestrian safety, although safety and safety at night is paramount for all of us. But we need to work together to provide sustainability for our natural system. And that's not just protecting wetlands, but the fauna itself. High beam lights affect nocturnal insects and creatures. I think of fireflies in particular as one example, but there's certainly many others. And we need to look at the big picture when we're looking at decisions regarding sustainability. Given what the previous speaker said, there isn't too much more I can add in terms of the technical aspects of this. But I know that members of the Environmental Commission have approached members of council. I know that there's some interest here with this body to take a second look. And I really urge council to take CA5 off the consent agenda and in turn table it, and then work with your various staff agencies and other commissions, I think Energy and Environment, to come up with something, a product that's a little bit worthwhile in terms of working with the plan. And as always, be careful working with DTE, as I'm sure you all know. All right, I don't have too much more to say, except that thanks for considering my remarks, and thank you for your patience.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Sally Oy.
Ms. Oy will be joining us via Zoom. Sally Oy, go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Good evening, council members and Mayor. My name is Sally Uwe. I'm a resident of Ward 5 in Ann Arbor. I'm a professor of astronomy at U of M. I'm coordinator of the local advocacy group, Michigan Dark Skies. We thank the city for the extensive work on the streetlight replacement program and attempts to address the dark sky concerns. Moving the color temperature of 2,700 degrees is a wonderful step. Unfortunately, it seems to come at the cost of increasing brightnesses on residential streets to levels that are 300 to 400% of the national standards. This serves to seriously and visibly undermine the recent lighting ordinance adopted by the city, while also costing more energy and money. Moreover, a minority of people agreed that putting 58-watt lights on residential streets was okay, according to the city's survey. I urge you instead to consider alternative plans that prioritize using 29-watt, 2,700 degree lights. This more fully supports both the lighting ordinance and A20 sustainability goals. Statements that there are insufficient resources to maintain two special order models can be reviewed. Which lights are on residential streets and which lights are on arteries is online for all to see via an interactive CGIS map showing detailed data for each city streetlight. We're grateful to the city for publicly providing this excellent database. Objectively, it seems quite trivial to identify where the two different models should go. I have faith that city staff can figure it out. Money saved from the energy bills can be used to pay for the time needed. Our city is rightfully looked to as a leader in sustainability initiatives, including the switch to LED lights in 2007. Why should we not, at minimum, adhere to the national ANSI standards for street lighting? And why should we leave money on the table in not doing so? What you decide with the streetlights in Ann Arbor will affect not just our own health and quality of life, but also that of surrounding rural communities, as well as that of other cities in Michigan by setting precedent. I urge you to re-examine possible options, and I'm optimistic that a more reasonable plan will be found. Thank you very much for your consideration.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Robert Stencil.
Mr. Stencil is joining us from Zoom. Caller with the phone number ending in 803, you can press *6 to unmute your phone. Go ahead.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
All right, excellent, thank you. I'm Robert Stencil, Ward 4, 2865-ish, and speaking about CA5, I thank the city for acting to significantly reduce energy use by switching to LED streetlights. I'm a U of M graduate and also a photometry scientist. I did examine and vote on the test lamps set up along Easy Street last winter, preferring the 29-watt lamps to the brighter 58-watt ones. I also am lucky to live with one of DTE's extremely bright 4,000 Kelvin streetlight, kind of like Leslie mentioned, at my address. And even room darkening shades aren't thick enough for that. So I'm speaking in favor of proposed action generally, but with using lower wattage LED streetlights, the 29 watts model, wherever feasible, especially along residential streets. Mr. Mayor, aside from the ecological reasons you've been hearing, we also might be able to avoid an expensive mistake if we end up having to retrofit exclusively 58 watt super bright lamps with 29 watt lamps once residents start complaining that the new lights are just too damn bright. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Ann Curry.
Hi, I'm in Ward 5. I've never come to speak to the City Council, and so I really don't have that much prepared, but I'm here to speak about the same thing because I live on Sequoia Parkway, so right across from Abbott Elementary. There are 3 streetlights that shine into our house. They're all the orange ones. And when I saw something about these 58-watt lights that would come in and how bright they would be, I'm like, oh no. No, that won't work at all. There's just too many that are coming in and it's too bright. It just seems, I understand that there's an issue with needing to buy a bunch of, you have to store a bunch of bulbs and you're trying to just go with one kind. I understand that, but it does sound like the 58-watt ones, to put them just everywhere and put them in neighborhoods is going to be a problem. I think it's going to be a problem for people and quality of life. And there's going to be complaints about that, and there's going to be pushback about that. And there's probably a reasonable chance that you're going to end up retrofitting them with maybe the 29 watt, or something is going to have to be done with them down the road. And maybe it would be better to do the 29 watt in the residential areas and then something else on the main arteries. Might be a wiser move right from the get-go. So I really appreciate your thoughtful consideration of this, and I don't want to be one of those residents who's going to be coming screaming about it and fussing about it. And I just hope we can head all that off. And the LED lights, that's great. The 2700 rating, I think, is good. It's a pretty warm white, so that should all be good. So if we can just hopefully keep it from being too bright, that would be wonderful. Thanks. That's it.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Rita Mitchell.
Mayor Rita Mitchell is joining us on Zoom. Rita Mitchell, go ahead.
Hi, this is Rita Mitchell calling from 621 6th Street in Ward 5. I'm having a government contract with DTE for LED light bulbs replacement. Your agenda item, BA5. We're living in a climate crisis, and it's time to focus and make long-range changes that will quickly reduce carbon emissions at every decision point possible. I'll appreciate your action to defer your decision on BA5 tonight. I understand that the grant to fund the LED replacement is due on September 30th, so there's time to make some modifications. I ask you to direct staff to specify 29-watt, 2700K LED light trees in neighborhoods and other areas that are not along major transportation routes. Your action will save a significant amount of money in the long term by cutting the electricity tree use in these areas by half. The savings can be applied to purchase the LEDs or to cover staff funds needed for the LED maintenance. Use of the 58-watt LEDs as proposed when a 29-watt LED is appropriate will waste electricity in areas where bright lighting is not needed. Excess light will disrupt the nocturnal ecosystem. Plants, animals, and people will suffer, and we will be responsible for excess CO2 emissions associated with the excess light. An Arbor sky glow will increase and eliminate the night sky from nearby communities. I'm confident in the skills of city staff and DTE contractors to accurately identify the specifications documented for each street light, make the correct LED replacement choice, and install the devices correctly at the correct interval for replacement. Please take the small amount of time needed to modify the contract to select the right size wattage and color of LED, 29 watts, 2700K, for stacking of light bulbs. We need to request staff to develop and document standard procedures that will result in the right light bulb being placed in the right spot. You can make Ann Arbor a leader in sustainable lighting and improvement new systems. Please do so. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Lauren Sargent.
Ms. Sargent will be joining us on Zoom. Caller with the phone number ending in 340. Go ahead. Press *6 to unmute your phone, please. Go ahead.
Good evening, Dr. Lauren Sargent calling from 2815 Ember Way. I want to commend the city for moving forward with replacing inefficient lighting with LED lighting. However, I am one of the people who is a proud recipient of one of the too bright LED lights that shine into my bedroom window, and it has led to really persistent insomnia despite my best efforts to block out that light. And I would urge council to table CA5 and to support Professor Ui's suggested amendment to align our lighting with our needs. This is a matter of appropriate technology aligned with the city goals, notably our AC0 plan and also the dark sky model. We have all noticed that our ecosystems are already under severe stress from the climate crisis, and we should use every tool at our disposal to address them, and this is a simple one. I have great confidence that our city staff can manage two different kinds of light bulbs for two different situations. Lower wattage, less bright in residential areas, and brighter lighting in transit arteries. We can do this. This will save electricity, it will save money, it will be better for wildlife, it will be better for human health, it will be better for surrounding communities, as others have stated. So I'm urging you, please, surely we can do this. It's really not that hard. And it will save us enough money in electricity and in just the cost of the bulb to compensate for the potential additional staff time. Further, if we had a municipal electric utility, we could more easily and seamlessly align our practices and environmental goals and eliminate the necessity to have conversations like this one. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Our next speaker is David Koppel.
Well, I too am here to talk about the lighting, but I will do it from a different direction. I live in the 4th Ward District, proud Ann Arborite. I was the first Ann Arbor Energy Office Director and ran the office for 20 years, and while there did many energy projects, including lighting projects. The first one being Ann Arbor's very large project in 1989 to change mercury vapor lamps to metal halide lamps, to high pressure sodium lamps. This is thousands of lights that we saved 30% energy on, but turned the light color yellow. Was not that well received by the public, but there weren't cell phones and all those things back in 1989, so there wasn't that big of an outroar to it. Of course, times have changed. We've moved ahead in technologies. In 2004, my office got a grant to test this new technology, LED lighting, which we did. We took the grant money and we started putting up lighting fixtures in City Hall parking lot that were literally built in people's garages and whatever, just to find out what is this technology, does it make any sense? And over the couple of years of the grant, we found that it did, and in 2006, the city partnered with the Downtown Development Authority to put the first LED lighting in a downtown anywhere in the world. We led the world in LED lighting with the globe lights that are in downtown. I retired in 2008 and spent a lot of time since then. LED lights have obviously become the standard for lighting nowadays. We weren't wrong here in Ann Arbor when we did that. I left and we knew that city owned 30% of our street lights and DTE owned 70% of them. and they were trying to figure out how we move forward. Brings us today where we have city staff recommending these 58-watt LED lights with shielding, a good thing to keep the lights from going in people's bedroom windows, and a new color temperature, a much better color rendition. If you wear a green shirt, it'll look green. To prepare for this, I talked with my cohort at the city at the time, Mike Berggren, who was the outdoor lighting supervisor for the city of Ann Arbor, and we talked about this problem you guys are looking at right now. And he wanted to point out that when we installed the new lighting on Stadium, those big poles, that it was all 1 wattage, and you had to go back and change out all the lights outside of the commercial area at, I think, Greenwood Road and beyond, because the people living in the houses there complained so bitterly about the brightness of those lights. So, the obvious solution, as many people have said, is to use 2 different bulbs, the 58-watt bulb in the commercial parking lot, high-use intersections, and 29-watt, and whatever. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Ron Amos.
Hello, I'm Ron Amos, 2503 Hampshire Road, Ward 3. Mr. Mayor and council members, I'm here to speak about street lighting. Do not be swayed by the title item of item CA5, Carbon Reduction Program. I'm asking you to remove that item from the consent agenda and deny the contract. I'm growing up in the 60s, less than 2 miles from downtown Grand Rapids. We would sleep outside in the summer and marvel at the Milky Way and count shooting stars. You could actually count shooting stars from in the city. Now I live more than 3 miles from downtown Ann Arbor, and I can barely see a half dozen of the brightest stars at night. How did we get wrong? How did we go wrong? The house I grew up in Grand Rapids was never burglarized, nor were our neighbors. No arson occurred nearby. Living in Ann Arbor, we were burglarized. My neighbor behind us was burglarized. And the 2 neighbors to the south suffered an episode of arson that destroyed their homes, killed some of their animals, and disrupted their lives. My house on a street corner in Ann Arbor has a street light directly in front, a street light on the other side of the house behind me, and a street light next to the house to the east. My home and the neighbors are very well illuminated, over-illuminated, I would say, by the current street lights. Obviously, our well-lit streets in Ann Arbor did not deter the crimes I described. Why do we light our streets? Why do we light our streets so densely and so brightly? What is the rationale? The street light in front of my house is glaringly bright. Sitting in my living room, kitchen, or office bedroom, the offensive beacon is always there. Until it burns out, which we cheer. Unfortunately, it gets repaired and it's offensive again. I complained to the city about it, and miraculously, they persuaded DTE to install a shield. It's a piece of sheet metal that blocks my view from the bulb. Yay for me, not so much for my neighbor on the other side of the reflective shield. I'm an environmentalist. I have been a Knapp Park steward for more than 2 decades, and inspired by my Knapp experience, I planted a native garden in both my front yards, because I'm on a corner. Unfortunately, the plants, insects, and birds this native environment could support suffers from light pollution. The street lights illuminate so much more than the street. Street lights need shielding. I urge you to deny that contract.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Kathy Griswold.
Good evening. First, I want to thank the council members for questioning CA5. Also, I want to congratulate Milton Dehoney for the awesome experience we had in Ann Arbor with Good Morning America. It was reported that we actually set a record for audience attendance. So it was greatly fun, and Milton definitely deserved the A rating that he was given. He held up a great big A. So now, something more serious, CA5, the LED lighting. Real simple. Brighter is not better. And I agree with everything that's been said, but this is a life and death situation. No one here, no one at DTE understands how the retina reacts to a bright light and then darkness and then a bright light. Now, in another community, I was asked to come in and talk about that because DTE was trying to push for some very bright lights. It's cheaper to put a few bright lights on tall poles than to do it right. We need to do it right, and we can do it right. Also, what are the unintended consequences of this lighting? We need to deal with that. And third, what's the impact of glare? The bright light is going to provide or create reflection, as we just heard. It's also going to create greater glare on all of our signage that has a reflective coating on it. Okay, lastly, I want to again discuss the risk of a pending tax increase. And to say, I've been on both sides of the issue, advocating for the bond to build Skyline High School and against the 2009 2 mil WISD millage. Why do I still think the city is preparing for a tax increase? One, they're adding more employees. Again, tonight we're discussing that. Two, there was a phone survey in recent days asking about the direction of the city and whether you like the mayor or not, and asking to give a score. This was done by Clear Insights. Third, the lack of attention to detail. As we're seeing with CA5, we frequently do it and then we do it over again, whether it's putting pavers down in the DDA area or whether it's building a crosswalk or an intersection. We don't always get it right. So while there is denial, there's always denial about a tax increase until there's a formal plan and a formal committee ready to go. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Lola Soliotis.
I'd like to introduce council and everyone listening to my mother, Lola Suliotis. In her 94th year, Lola is a survivor of the Nazi occupation of Greece and the Greek Civil War, when our family fled Greece being targeted for execution by Greek communists. For decades, our family has known Ann Arbor as a place of sanctuary and acceptance. That changed beginning in August of 2020. In 2022, I presented the majority of this council, the mayor, and the city administrator with evidence of at least 4 statutory violations committed by city officials against Lola. Actions which deprived Lola of her income during peak COVID and resulted in direct financial losses in excess of $200,000. This is a debilitating and life-altering loss. The result of actions most accurately described as an economic assault. In April of this year, we believed we'd reached a truce of sorts with the city, only to have our lives disrupted again when the company next door dug up our land, exposed the rear foundation of our home. Sitting peaceably in our home, we have since witnessed city officials do the following. 1, issue a permit without requiring a site plan, meaning there's no indication of exactly where a structure is to be placed upon a lot, a situation that risks plan approvals which violate the rights of neighboring property owners. 2, apparently ignore fire code requirements and approve plans containing fire code violations. 3, blatantly violate FOIA laws. 4, seek to compel us into costly civil litigation against our corporate neighbor. These new issues have so far cost our family at least $7,000. It might not seem like a lot to some of you, but it's an amount just shy of my mother's entire annual Social Security income, so it's not nothing. I'll be contacting each and every council member regarding this situation with fuller detail, and I hope to have the support of council in investigating why these things keep happening. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Sarah Lorenz.
Good evening. My name is Sarah Lorenz. I live in Ward 4. I am the co-founder with Peter Allen of the Equitable Ann Arbor Land Trust and its brand new sister nonprofit, the Ann Arbor Community Land Trust. After 4 years of research and community meetings about our housing crisis, we established the Ann Arbor Community Land Trust, or A2CLT, this spring as a new 501c3. And we are using the time-tested community land trust model being used by hundreds of CLTs around the country. We have also connected with a dozen other community land trusts in Michigan to learn about their successful programs. With the complete market failure of private for-profit developers in providing starter homes and moderate income housing for sale, we realized that a nonprofit developer would be needed in Ann Arbor. The Community Land Trust model is community-led development with the kind of housing that we need in the right places for the right prices. The EA2 vision for placemaking, walkability, and affordability includes this crucial priority of providing home ownership so that our critical workers can buy a home and become permanent members of the community that they serve, not permanent commuters. Because the average new unit of housing costs around $400,000, we will need public investment to make these homes attainable for many of our workers. We, as the Community Land Trust, will sell these new homes at below market rates and will preserve the public investment by making these homes permanently affordable for future generations. And where will this public investment come from, you may ask? That's an important question. There will be many layers of support needed, but the good news is that we have two primary methods. The first one is from the Michigan Legislature's 2023 expansion of the Brownfield Act to allow tax increment financing for workforce housing development. With this method, our high taxes become a superpower for funding new housing. The second method is through grants for new middle-income homes from the Michigan State Housing Development Authority with state and federal funds. Our five-county region has had more than $16 million available for new housing in the past year. But sadly, Ann Arbor has not secured any of that $16 million in funding because there was just no one to apply for it and to execute on that. But the A2CLT board is working hard to change that. We've secured 4 infill sites and are pursuing others, and that we hope to announce that by the end of summer and have people moving into their new homes next year. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Philip Anuxella. Philip Anuxella.
Mayor, it was my expectation that this person would be here in person in the chamber. I don't see him on Zoom.
Our next speaker is Peter Allen.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Peter Allen. I live at 2224 Applewood Court, Ward 1. The key to solving Ann Arbor's housing problem is a city and university partnership, a true town and gown blueprint for development, not just a planning and rezoning document that identifies the massive new supply of housing options at all income levels. Our goals for EA2 and the Ann Arbor CLT are to take land and donations to help us achieve this vision. We hope to partner with the U of M, city, county, public schools, churches, even Washtenaw Community College on using their air rights over service parking lots or excess land. Then partner with the private sector to build walkable condo ownership housing on top of neighborhood retail. In simple terms, we plan on co-developing 10 or more locations, each a 15-minute neighborhood, and including several thousand people each. Read and share your complimentary copy of the 15-Minute City for details and best practices around the world, especially the chapters on Cleveland and Portland. We hope to grow Ann Arbor and U of M dramatically to well over 150,000 residents using idle downtown and campus excess public land. We need a massive new supply of for-sale housing for workers making 30, 60, 120,000 or more. Our motto is, if you work here, you should be able to live and own here. Here is the exciting part. In addition to lots of new walkable, affordable housing, we see the riverfront from Argo Pond to the Arb as the key value add for all our fellow citizens. Our goal is to show how to create a riverfront conservancy to oversee maintenance, management, and programming of the riverfront from Argo to the Arb, perhaps even from Barton Pond to Gallup Pond. Open up year-round views of the water by removing all the honeysuckle and buckthorn invasives. Let everybody see, hear, and touch the water up close. Connect the river to all the city parks, the key city parks and neighborhoods. Use the creek sheds for walking and biking trails. Help design and strategically locate 8 new walking and biking bridges across the Huron. Offering expanded walking and biking paths from the river and campuses to all the key neighborhoods and parks around town. Very importantly, make the Huron River experience as appealing and defining to all of us as the big house. Go to our aspirations website for EA2, which is www.ea2landtrust.org. Lastly, to minimize cars, we want to integrate our 15-minute neighborhoods with the multimodal transit systems, including all the new heavy rail, all the new automated transit system and bus rapid transit systems of the U, and the expanding ATA. By the end of the year, we hope to have a more detailed development plan for these sites. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We've reached the end of our first 15 speakers. However, we have not reached the end of the allocated 45-minute period, and so we continue until the end of that 45-minute period. Our next speaker is Blaine Coleman.
As you know, there's one seat on the city council which is being contested in this election, the Ward 4 seat, which is currently held by Councilmember Jen Iyer. Councilmember Iyer took campaign money from old friends of the Israel Defense Forces. By contrast, Dr. Mojgan Savabi Esfahani, who you see here, has been fighting for a resolution against military aid to Israel for over 20 years, standing in this city council. If you want flyers about her campaign, come see me. I've got them right here. Israel is committing a Holocaust against the Palestinian people. The Lancet just published a study saying that if Israel stopped bombing the Gaza Strip right now, there would still be at least 186,000 dead in Gaza. At least 186,000 dead Palestinians. This bombing has been sustained with massive, massive U.S. military aid handed over to Israel by the Biden administration. Now, there's a difference between Biden and Trump. Biden says he's for a ceasefire now, while supplying Israel with unlimited quantities of gigantic bombs to drop on the Gaza Strip. The difference is Trump will do the same, but he won't say the word ceasefire. How on earth are you going to defeat Trump if you're just like him, except for a little bit of surface language? I don't see how. Both men, Biden and Trump, stand for massive violence against the Palestinian people, one with a slight sugarcoating on top of the bombs and the other without. I want to know, are any of you city council people proud to have stopped these resolutions, to have smothered these resolutions against military aid to Israel? Are any of you city council people proud to have stood with the genocidal state of Israel? Are any of you people proud to support Israel? Any of you? I see none. So why don't you allow the resolution against military aid to Israel to finally be voted on before this Holocaust in the Gaza Strip gets even worse than it already is? I used to wonder, how do Holocausts happen? Now I know. The
Thank
answer
you.
is here.
Our next speaker is Dylan Sheffman.
Good evening, Council. Thank you for being here with us tonight. My name is Dylan Sheffman. I live on Forest Court in Ward 3, and I'm working as an intern at the Equitable Ann Arbor Land Trust. Over the past 6 months, student teams, including myself, have set out to reimagine what Ann Arbor could be for the 120,000 people who live here, the 80,000 commuters who drive in every day, and the over 6 million yearly visitors to Washtenaw County. The fact of the matter is that more people want to live in Ann Arbor than the city can accommodate at the moment. To address this, my team has designed walkable, mixed-use, transit-accessible neighborhoods spanning from university property at Plymouth and Murphin to downtown adjacent land on Fuller Road. We envision thousands of new units on unused or underused land, all to be owned by their residents, split into roughly equal thirds of affordable, workforce, and market rate housing. By introducing a community land trust, we have the opportunity and physical space to create entire new neighborhoods that rely on walking, biking, transit, and rideshare, with all amenities within a 15-minute walk. We aim to create the first completely unparked neighborhoods in Ann Arbor, kept affordable in perpetuity through deed restrictions. These new neighborhoods will return the Huron River and its 4 creeks to the forefront of Ann Arbor life. We're currently working on 10 sites around downtown near transit and jobs for 5 to 6-story condo walk-ups. Our next priority will be city parking lots on both sides of Fuller Road at the pool. A dense mixture of housing, cafes, restaurants, grocery stores, and more will have direct access to the river, as well as the BRT and elevated rail the university plans to build. The river, which is currently hidden from most of the city, will become the natural meeting place and connection point between north and south, east and west, urban and natural. Student teams have drafted plans for river-facing neighborhoods, bringing them to life with AI imaging. We'll send our work over shortly to illustrate the true potential Ann Arbor has. Ann Arbor is one of the only cities in the country with the political will to undertake such a bold and transformative project. You've heard from my colleagues Peter and Sarah for more information, and we've got a book for each of you to read. So join us in making our beautiful city a nationwide model for housing affordability and climate resilience. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there communications today from council?
Thank you, Mayor. Last week, I attended the check presentation ceremony for AAATA's low-no $25 million grant from the Federal Transit Administration. The ride will be able to purchase new hydrogen fuel cell and low-emission diesel-electric hybrid buses to replace older diesel buses and a mobile hydrogen station. This project will improve operations, reduce energy consumption, and enable AAATA to move toward a zero emission fleet. Thank you to the Biden-Harris administration, Matt Carpenter, the RIDE staff, and their board for making this happen.
Further communication from council? I'd like to recommend the following appointments for consideration for approval in a one-step process to the Renters Commission. Hannah Larchinus and Barbara Wood. May I have a motion, please, by Councilmember Medina, seconded by Councilmember Harrison. Discussion. Councilmember Medina.
Thank you, Mayor, and I just wanted to let everyone know why we are requesting this in a one-step process. We've had a bunch of turnover recently on Renters Commission and are actually, I believe, at the number of people we need for quorum. So if anyone is missing at our meeting later this week, we would have to cancel. So we are trying to get these folks in place so that they can begin their service sooner and we can get the commission back up and to capacity. So we expect to have a few more coming soon, but these two will get us a little bit closer. Thanks.
Further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? It is approved. I'd like to recommend the following nomination for your consideration to the Zoning Board of Appeals, Patricia Laskowski. We have before us the consent agenda. May I have a motion, please, to approve the consent agenda? Moved by Councilmember Cornell, second by Councilmember Briggs. Discussion of the consent agenda. Councilmember Ackman.
I'd like to pull CA4, please.
CA4. Councilmember Briggs.
I'd like to pull CA5 and CA7.
Further discussion of the consent agenda. All in favor? All opposed? The consent agenda is approved with the exception of CA 4, 5, and 7 for subsequent consideration. With 10 council members present, all voting in the affirmative, thus satisfying the 8-vote requirement with respect to CA 11. CA 4. Resolution to authorize a sole source purchase order to Michigan Lighting Systems East in the amount of $165,060 for Spring City Street light poles and associated fixtures and luminaries, and to appropriate $120,000 from the Central Store's unobligated fund balance. Moved by Councilmember Ackman, seconded by Councilmember Iyer. Discussion, please, of CA4. Councilmember Ackman.
So this is an item that's about lighting that's not about the DTE streetlights. This is about the purchase of 20 streetlight luminaries, 20 streetlight poles, and 22 streetlight bases along Stadium Boulevard. These are city-owned, and originally these were to match the ones that are currently installed along Stadium Boulevard from South Industrial to Main Street and Hutchins Avenue to Maple Road. And basically, staff has requested this because they will use it as inventory to replace the ones that are damaged in crashes or in other instances that require repair and replacement. After inquiring with staff, I'd like to suggest an amendment that adds 2 resolved clauses that make the replacement more consistent with Ann Arbor's outdoor light ordinance, which serves to minimize light trespass onto neighboring properties, address health and safety problems due to glare and sky glow, address serious environmental impacts as well as wasted energy. And I did send these to the clerk, so I'll circulate that around and read them. I did think it was worth pointing out that our outdoor lighting ordinance technically only applies to private property and not public rights of way, but I also think it's important to apply the city's values where we're able to do so, and so that's what this amendment is meant to do.
Perhaps read the amendment?
Sure. So I'd like to make an amendment to add 2 resolved clauses. So do I read them? Okay. Sure. Resolved, the replacement lighting installation shall have a correlated color temperature of no greater than 3000 K. And resolved, the replacement lighting installation shall use appropriate shielding and the light shall be directed downward to minimize glare.
Is there a second? Second by Councilmember Briggs. Is that friendly to the body? CA4. It appears friendly. Councilman Ackman, you still have the floor.
I guess I would just say I appreciate staff's responsiveness to this. I believe they looked back at the work order and talked with the person or the company that we're getting the lights from, and this is doable. So I just appreciate that. Thanks.
Further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? CA4 is approved. CA5, resolution to accept carbon reduction program grant funds from Southeast Michigan Council of Governments, execute a contract with DTE Energy to convert DTE streetlights to LED technology in the amount of $1,250,000 and appropriate funding. Moved by Councilmember Briggs, seconded by Councilmember Ackman. Discussion, please, of CA5. Councilmember Briggs, although I believe we have an introduction in advance. Thank you. Yes, we can.
Good evening. My name is Sky Stewart, and I'm the Chief of Staff of the Public Services area. Staff have received several questions related to the carbon reduction program grant funds and the contract to convert DTE remaining non-LED streetlights in the city to LED. Staff provided written responses to the council agenda response memo on July 11th, and I will now provide answers to the additional 7 questions posed by council members this morning. Question 1. Could staff offer a ballpark estimate of the percentage FTE and cost of a position to cooperatively manage DTE-owned streetlights so as to provide for lights of varying wattage on local streets versus arterials? Answer. Staff estimate that more than 1 full-time equivalent would be needed to cooperatively manage the multiple fixture LED conversion throughout the city. A lighting engineer, either full-time equivalent or consultant support, would be needed for the upfront effort to establish the street-by-street lighting plans, to determine at each DTE streetlight the preferred wattage. This position would also coordinate with DTE or their contractors as questions come up during the installation process and for ongoing replacements. Currently, our transportation manager and one of our transportation engineers have been managing this work and filling these gaps as they come up, but it pulls them away from other core responsibilities. Additionally, a part-time inventory technician or similar would be needed for ongoing stocking, tracking, verification of maintenance, access, etc. We do not have specific cost estimates at these time for these positions, as they're not currently positions we have. Question 2. Could staff offer its best estimate of stocking costs for 29-watt and 58-watt bulbs? Answer. Stocking multiple fixtures would be less about the direct stocking costs and more about the indirect staffing costs and effort needed to manage multiple inventories in coordination with DTE or its contractor to ensure they put the correct fixtures in the correct locations on their assets. The known direct costs include a $25,000 investment for initial inventory stack stock, as well as a dedicated space at Wheeler Center for inventory storage. Question 3. Could staff offer its best judgment regarding the prospects for successful collaboration with DTE managing installation and ongoing maintenance of LED lighting of varying wattages on local streets and arterials on DTE-owned streetlights? Answer. Staff currently have a functioning working relationship with our current reps from the DTE Community Lighting Group, and those reps have been responsive to our questions throughout this process about where we, the city, can influence their operations and where we cannot. There are challenges about doing a special order for non-standard lights, and DTE has been upfront with us on this. For background, and as you may have seen in the agenda packet, the DTE standard LED fixture offerings have a color temperature of 4,000 Kelvin, which is a bright, cool light, and their current standard wattages range from 58 watt to 206 watt. When we initially applied for this grant, DTE's original agreement with the city would have converted every single light as part of this project to their standard 4,000 Kelvin color temperature, and more than 1,000 lights would be converted to a wattage above 58 watts. In the intervening months, staff have successfully advocated to get a revised agreement with DTE, which will result in warmer lights across the board and a color temperature of 2,700 Kelvin, and nearly all fixtures being 58 watt. Only a small number of exception cases, approximately 50 locations, would have brighter and cooler lights, either 58 watt or 136 watt, and 4,000 Kelvin, all chosen for pedestrian safety needs at intersections and uncontrolled crosswalks. In summary, we have been working collaboratively with our counterparts at DTE for this project, but again, the special order process has its challenges that we are navigating. Question 4. Does the city have any legislative or regulatory authority over DTE with respect to DTE-owned streetlights in Ann Arbor? Answer. No. The Michigan Public Service Commission, MPSC, is the body with the authority to regulate public utilities, including the DTE Electric Company. The regulation of DTE-owned streetlights falls within this authority. Question 5. Can staff offer an estimate of the energy cost savings for using 29 watt bulbs on locals as opposed to 58 watt? Answer. We do not have this calculation at this time. DTE would need to be involved to verify any estimates. However, the large efficiency gains that we would get as part of this effort would be from switching from the less efficient and higher wattage high-pressure sodium lights, which are up to 400 watts in some instances, to more efficient LED fixtures. The difference between installing the 58 watt and the 29 watt LED lights for a portion of the fixtures would be relatively minor in comparison. Question 6. Will DTE allow doing a special order and not stocking replacements? An earlier email from staff indicated that if there is no replacement stock, DTE would replace with their own stock. Answer: no. DTE indicated that they require a stock of replacement inventory as part of all special order agreements. Currently with a 12-week lead time for DTE, their reasoning is that if the replacement stock isn't available or accessible, then they would replace a broken or malfunctioning fixture with their own standard stock, which they would typically always have available. Question 7. If it's not feasible to stock 2 different bulbs, could we focus the project on just bulbs that are currently 100 watt HPSs and below on locals so that we just stock the 29 watt bulbs? Answer: city staff sought out this grant opportunity to help achieve its A20 100% LED streetlight goal in advance of the 2030 target, in addition to capturing the energy savings and financial benefit for the general fund. Making a change to the project at this late date, the city would need an agreement with both the grantor, which is SimCog, and DTE, the owners of the assets, to change the scope of the project, and this would require restarting some state administrative reviews. We believe this could likely push us beyond the obligation deadline for these funds. Should we miss the deadline, we would have no identified funding source for the remaining non-LED DTE streetlight conversions and would rely on DTE's standard replacement schedule for the remaining streetlights and at their lighting standards at the time, which, as we've discussed, are higher color temperatures and higher wattages. Thank you.
Councilmember Briggs.
Thank you, and thanks for answers to all those questions and others that were asked before. I think we all know that our inboxes have been flooded with emails on this subject. We saw folks out here tonight. This is an issue that matters to our community. It matters to a wide swath of folks that we don't usually hear from. And so, I first want to start by just really praising staff. They have gone out, they have sought a SEMCOG grant to cover the cost of replacing all of the city's streetlights, including the majority of lights that we do not own. These are owned by DTE. They should be replacing the bulbs. They should be doing it in conjunction with what our community norms and values are, and honestly, in terms of what in terms of dark sky priorities as well. That's something that DTE should prioritize as well. They did not, but staff has gone through this process and secured a lot. It's a strong proposal in the sense that these are going to be shielded streetlights. We have a color temperature of 2,700, but as we heard from folks, there's a real strong desire to have 29 watt bulbs in our in neighborhoods that are away from arterial streets. Obviously, we have plenty of neighborhoods that are along arterials as well, and that's an important component here. I was out last night looking at the lights that are installed on Liberty and Eberwhite. There's also some on Packard and I think Easy Street. Staff can let you know kind of where those are at, and I encourage folks to go take a look at them. But I think that this is a DTE problem, right? It's important that DTE should be listening to what our community wants and should be partnering with us on making this possible. They are essentially making this a situation where the city has to develop a lighting plan, create, if we wanted to do this, hire a new staff member. We're already paying for their light bulbs. This is something that DTE should be able to handle. If they can't handle managing a couple of light bulbs, why should we be trusting them with our energy supply? So, I'd love to hear what others are thinking about. I think that there are some things we need to consider in terms of potentially postponing this evening, but also I know there's some amendments that are going to be considered.
Councilmember Dish.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you everyone who came to speak tonight, and thank you council members and staff who've done so much work on this. So I'm really grateful to hear all these powerful arguments and eloquent words here tonight and in the written communications we've received. Everyone at this table shares the commitments of those who have spoken and written. We all want to achieve our A20 goal of converting 100% of the streetlights in the city to LED by 2030, and we want to protect our dark skies principles, which means battling light pollution so that everybody sleeps better, human and non-human animals alike. So Ms. Stewart described the process of winning this grant and also described how, while the grant was in process, DTE announced a plan to phase out its high-pressure sodium lights and replace them with LED. And she explained to you that their plan would have made every single light considerably cooler, and many of them, more than 1,000 of them, at a brightness above 58 watts. City staff negotiated a revised agreement with DTE for a special order that reduces the brightness of almost every single LED light that DTE currently manages in the city. I'm going to run the numbers. Currently, DTE manages 1,322 LED lights in Ann Arbor. The most common of these fall in the 64 to 49 watt range. There are 822 of those. The next most common fall in the 120 to 157 watt range. There are 207 of those. After that, we have the 56 to 58 watt range. There are 205 there, and that's the brightness that we would see for almost all of the 4,000 lights that we're talking about updating. Finally, there are 84 at the 72 to 96 watt range. Currently, there are just 4 29 watt LED lights in the city, and those are from the demonstration project. So thanks to the agreement that city staff has negotiated, DTE will install warmer lights across the board than it proposed to do. These lights will have a color temperature of 2,700, and nearly all the lights will be at 58 watts, with the exception of about 50 at a higher wattage than that, rather than 1,000 as DTE had proposed. If this proposal goes through, then all of the replacement lights will be at a lower wattage and color temperature than what we have now.
Councilor Radina.
Thank you, Mayor. I have a couple of questions that I think might be for Ms. Stewart, but if not, maybe I'll redirect them to Mr. Dohoney. One of the things that we're doing here tonight, I mean, this is the item before us does several things, right? It accepts grant funds, it executes a contract, and it appropriates funding all in one vote. I guess I have a couple of questions about whether or not this grant, one, you mentioned an obligation deadline. When is the deadline to actually obligate the funds? Do you know that?
Yes, this is, the deadline is September 30th for the fiscal year.
Okay. And is this a situation, was the grant application tied directly to this specific plan, or was it related to a conversion to the more energy efficient LED lights? And I ask that because I wonder if it is possible to accept the grant dollars and continue kind of working out the details if there's a deadline by which we need to accept it as well.
I'd like to ask Cyrus McGee, the transportation engineer, to respond to that if possible.
Hope everyone can hear me okay. My first time on mic, but
all good.
Great. The short version is that there's a review process involved with the specific light bulbs that we are proposing. So changing them at a late date is what most puts the grant at jeopardy in being obligated in time. So there's not a lot of leeway to change the specifications of the bulbs chosen while also obligating the grant this fiscal year.
Okay, thank you. I also want to, I think, echo one of the things that Councilmember Briggs highlighted, you know, I appreciate that DTE is working with us on this conversion, but I'm also a little bit disappointed because I was invited to a conversation with them recently where they also mentioned that they were aligned with and trying to help us work towards our A20 goals. And I think adding kind of this additional complexity where they are requiring the city to manage one of their the supply for one of their assets doesn't help us achieve those goals. They're putting additional work and burden on us rather than taking that on and doing it themselves, which I think is really disappointing. So I want to challenge DTE also to rethink their obligations in this. And you know, I recognize that a deadline is coming, but I am also potentially open to postponing this if we can continue to work on it.
Councilmember Ackman.
I wanted to say that I really also appreciate staff's work on this and that it addresses many quality of life, human life, and energy savings, as well as environmental concerns. We've talked a lot about color temperature. That's a huge win that we got that changed. Also, shielding was something that was mentioned, but it wasn't explicitly called out. And so I am also suggesting, before we move too far on the discussion of postponement, I would like to amend it so that it explicitly covers shielding. So if you could share my resolve clause, I'd like to move an amendment to add a resolve clause that says City Council's approval is based on the understanding that DTE will, at the time of installation and at no additional cost to the city, utilize luminaries that meet shielding criteria as determined by the city to minimize light trespass or glare onto private property to the extent practicable, and direct the city administrator to request that the purchase agreement be amended to reflect this understanding.
Is there a second? Second by Councilmember Briggs. Is the amendment friendly? People want conversation? And it looks friendly. Councilmember Ackman, you still have the floor.
There's not much more to say beyond that. I just appreciate having what staff said that reflects their discussions with DTE reflected in this resolution. Thanks.
Councilmember Briggs.
Yeah, so thanks. I coincidentally, maybe not coincidentally, but I am the council's liaison to SEMCOG. I coincidentally have a meeting with the executive director tomorrow on a range of subjects, so happy to be bringing up this issue tomorrow as well. I recognize the staff has full communications, and I happened to chat with the staff person working on this at our last SEMCOG meeting, so know they're aware that we are in full discussions around bulbs in the city of Ann Arbor. So, but I'm proud of our community. The fact that when folks come up here and they're messaging us, they're obviously talking about quality of light issues. They're talking about impact to themselves, but they're also talking about the impact that lower wattage has to the community, the larger community around us. You know, the environmental health, public health, the night sky, the night glow, and what that means when we have excess light that we don't need. And that's what folks are saying. We don't need excess light in across our entire community. And so DTE should know this as well. And I put this problem squarely at their feet. I just want to say that again. This is staff has done an outstanding job of working to secure shielding, better color temperature, and they've been negotiating for a long time to get there. And so I recognize their sort of hesitation around, can we secure more? But I hope that DT is listening to this, and I hope that they're watching next door. And I hope that they are recognizing that the comments that we heard tonight were just a smattering of what are filling our inboxes. And the reality is that this is what our community wants, and it is a very small change for them to be making and partnering with us on, because if we're calling for it now, others are going to be calling for it in the future, and they've got to figure this out. They might as well figure it out with us. We're a good partner. We're going to help them through this, but this is the way the world's going. So I would like to move to postpone this evening so that we can staff can continue to work with return to those DTE and say that this is a community priority that they should not be charging us for. These are their assets. They should be coming up with a plan, and this should not cause extra staff, significant extra full-time staff for us to manage. We've already bought the bulbs.
This is a postponement to the next meeting, I infer.
Correct.
Is there a second on the postponement? Second by Councilmember Iyer. Further discussion of the postponement? Councilor Ackman.
Yeah, I strongly support this so that we can figure this out. I think the lights are going to be too bright. I think the challenge that we're in is it's very clear that our plan replaces the lights with something better than DTE will do on their own. And I'm sure other of my colleagues have gotten complaints about the old lights that have burned out and been replaced with DTE's version of the LED, which are, I think, 65 watts and like 5,000 K color temperature. One was put outside of my house. It lit the whole house up. So, this is not as bad. In fact, it's quite a bit better, but I still think that the level of light is going to be such that we are going to hear a lot of complaints. And as one of our speakers said, I would hate to roll this out all at once and have to change it. And I am really concerned that it's going to cause quality of life issues beyond all of the other associated issues that people talked about so eloquently. So strongly support postponing this to give us a chance to do it right.
Further discussion of the postponement, Councilmember Dish.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm just a little puzzled because, I received the information that I was sharing with you all not very long ago. I would have shared it earlier. We heard people speaking, comparing comparing this change to what they are experiencing now. The change that is proposed is less bright than what they are experiencing now. Most of the LED lights in the city that DTE manages are between 64 and 69 watts. I see head shaking, so I'm going to ask Ms. Stewart to help this statement. And if Dr. Stultz is around, perhaps she can speak to the, perhaps she can speak to the importance to A20 of dark skies as well as energy reduction.
I can speak to the existing LED lights that are owned by DTE. So this project that we're considering is about 4,000 lights. The DTE owns closer to like 5,300 lights in the city. And so 1,300 of their lights are already LED. And as Councilmember Dish was explaining, we have some information about those lights, and we know that of those 1,300 lights that are already LED, all but about 200 of them are higher wattage than 58 watt. So whether that's another 800 or so that are 64 to 69 watt, another 200 that are 120 watt to 157 watt, and then another 80 or so that are 72 watt to 96 watts. So there are examples. They have done this, and this project, this effort to convert the remaining 4,000 would not actually touch these 1,300 lights. Those would remain at this time that are not included in this grant. So I think that answers the question about DT's existing lights and their wattages.
Yes, that answers my question, and I guess I'm just trying to make sure that I am. Oh, I'm sorry. Do I not have any time left?
You do not.
Okay, then I don't need any.
Further discussion. And I should say this is of the postponement is probably what I also should have observed. So on the postponement, Cornell Rodino.
You can tell me if this is not the appropriate question for right now, but I think there might be confusion around the high pressure sodium versus LED conversion, and I'm wondering if staff could speak to that. I feel like we might not be comparing apples to apples.
We've had a council can do what council wishes to do here, but I will observe that the motion on the table is for postponement. And if there are factual questions that might inform the debate, that might be something that I don't know if we want to ask here, or perhaps it would make more sense to have factual questions such as, please describe the difference between, high pressure sodium and LED, et cetera, and how many lumens is this, how many lumens is that. Those might be better presented to staff offline during the next bit. And then staff can incorporate that into the work that it does when it goes back to DTE and then circles back with us about the results. But that's just an idea. Okay, so let's, observing that, I think, Councilmember Cornell, you actually have the floor on the postponement.
Then I guess I'll say I strongly support postponing.
If you wanted to describe the reasons for your desire, and of course that could be something too.
I feel like we're debating two different things as we're talking about this because of the difference between the high pressure sodium versus LED. We're not talking about the same bulbs.
I had someone else in the queue here. Was that Radina? Thank you. And then Briggs. My apologies. Then Dish. Thank you. Councilor Radina.
In noting my continued support for a postponement, I would note that it's possibly the difference between the wattage is the amount of energy used to reach the maximum brightness. The brightness of an LED bulb could be brighter at a lower wattage. And so it's using less energy, but it could be brighter. So that's the difference in, so just because the wattage is lower does not mean that it is less bright or intense. It is using less energy.
Mr. Mahoney.
I realize we're not resolved yet, but I want to make sure that staff is clear on what are we postponing it for, to address the wattage issue or to do something else?
I think if I can just briefly characterize, I think the general request with respect to the postponement is that let me hop in the queue and I'll use my time. I'm in favor of the postponement, and during this postponement, I'd like to, for my own part, express great gratitude to staff for working on this, for obtaining a grant in order to accelerate our 820 goal substantially. And I'd also like to acknowledge that DTE is working with us and communicating with us on this point in a context in which it is not obligated. And so they are engaging with us on this point. They can do more, and I hope they do, but it must be said. I think I'm in favor of this postponement because I'm looking forward to staff engaging with DTE to determine whether there are, and I'll move off of wattage and move to lumens, whether there are lower lumen alternatives that can be effectively and efficiently distributed throughout local streets. Is that the sense of the body? Is that clear enough? By all means.
Ms. Stewart, Dr. Stoltz, are you clear on what's being asked for here?
I think we are clear that we will go back to BTE and discuss what other options exist. I hear the point about wattage. It can be very confusing, and lumens might be a different conversation. Might be able to move the conversation away from wattage to lumens might help when we talk about brightness as a particular concern. So we will have that conversation with them.
Dr. Stiltz, are you clear?
As much, sir.
Thank you.
Councilor Dish, you're on the queue.
So my assumption is that some people were speaking about their experience with LED lights in the city. And insofar as they were speaking about their experience with LED lights, they are describing a situation where there may not be more irritation, there may well be less, given that we have negotiated a lower color temperature and significantly lower wattage, which perhaps is completely unrelated to brightness, or perhaps has some relationship, if not an exact relationship, to brightness. But of course, all of the staff communication and the community communication has been in terms of brightness. So I'm not opposed to a 2-week or whatever it is, 3-week postponement, so that we can understand fully all of our options and where we are. But I think it is extremely important to understand how dramatic or not the proposed change actually is, because it has been presented as significantly dramatic, and it may not be.
Further discussion of the postponement? Councilmember Briggs.
Just to make sure there's additional clarity around what we're asking for. I think there's a strong interest in continuing to explore the ability for DTE to provide, to allow for 29-watt bulbs on local streets. That is what folks are, that is the preference that folks have been calling for. And to do so in a way that does not create significant additional cost to the city in terms of maintaining that, recognizing the DTE's responsibility for this asset and asset management, as opposed to putting all of that burden on the city to do. So those are the pieces that I think going back and having continued conversations around are, I would hate for, it's possible you'll hear the exact same answers that you've already received, but I hope that there's additional flexibility.
Further discussion of the postponement? All in favor? Opposed? It is postponed. We now come to a set of public hearings. Public hearings are opportunities for members of the public to speak to council and the community about the specific subject matter of the public hearing. To speak at a public hearing, one need not have signed up in advance, but your speech must relate. Darn it. It is recollected to me that CA7 awaits. CA7, resolution to approve a professional services agreement with Sam Schwartz Consulting LLC for Safe Streets to All grant coordination, amount of $1,073,636.22, and appropriate $855,000 from the Climate Action Millage Fund. Moved by Councilmember Briggs, seconded by Councilmember Iyer. Discussion, please, of CA7. Councilmember Briggs.
Thanks. And I'm primarily pulling this for just a quick discussion. This is a really important, the Safe Streets for All grant that the city received. This work has been a long time in coming. We first, as council, some of us initiated planning work on this with it came with Vision Zero transportation plan, and then budgeted for it in the fiscal year 22 budget. In terms of some of the planning work on major streets, traffic calming, and I know that some have been pushing very hard to see those flex posts that will come in on our bike lanes. And so, I think I'm glad to see Sam Schwartz. I know they're very knowledgeable they've been working with the city on a lot of projects. I think they'll do a good job in terms of moving this project forward. Obviously, it's challenging to watch this as kind of at this point where we're not seeing something go on the ground this construction season, and we're really looking towards next. I guess I encourage staff they mentioned in the agenda response questions that there might be an opportunity to do the flex post, move that earlier and have those put in the spring of 25, and I think that's something that I would hope that staff would really strive for in terms of this work plan. We've been waiting for a long time to get those protected bike lanes in. And I've heard some community questions around how the hardened center lines, how they interface with the roadway configurations that we had asked to be explored on Plymouth Road and others. Obviously, we have an interest in seeing some of these roadways turned over to transit as soon as we can, in terms, or at least explored for that. So I think there's, from my perspective, that it's going to take a little while for the ride to get grants to move that forward. So in the interim time period, I'm comfortable seeing work there that's going to be slowing traffic and allowing for better multimodal transportation along that road.
Councilmember Ackman.
Thank you. And thanks, Councilmember Briggs. Wanted to put the importance of this work in context and also highlight the importance of doing whatever portions of the work that we can do as soon as we can. So this week, the state of Michigan released their official numbers on crashes across the state. And it's sobering to report that while nationally pedestrian deaths declined 5.4% in 2023, they actually rose 6% in Michigan. Also, we can tell from these data that 2023 was the worst year for pedestrian crashes in Ann Arbor since 2014. The state data show that traffic crashes in Ann Arbor resulted in 11 serious injuries and 1 fatality for pedestrians. We have a goal of 0 by 2025. So that's why all of this work that we're doing to slow speeds is so critical. And I would just like to echo Councilmember Briggs in asking us to bring whatever portion of this work forward as soon as possible. Thank you.
Further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? It is approved with 10 council members present, all voting in the affirmative, thus satisfying the 8-vote requirement. Well, we now come to a set of public hearings. Public hearings remain an opportunity for members of the public to speak to council and the community about matters of municipal interest. To speak at a public hearing, one need not have signed up in advance, but your speech must relate to the subject matter of the public hearing. That is to say, the specific item on the agenda to which the public hearing relates. Speakers in all instances will have 3 minutes in which to speak, so please pay close attention to the time. Our clerk or the time clock will notify you when 30 seconds are remaining and when your time has expired. When your time has expired, please conclude your remarks and cede the floor. Public hearing number 1, an ordinance to amend the zoning map being part of section 5.10.2 of chapter 55 of title 5 of the Code of the City of Ann Arbor of 1.7 acres from C1AR with 23 conditions, campus business residential, to C1AR with 2024 conditions, campus business residential, Southtown rezoning. Is there anyone who would like to speak at this public hearing? Rather, I should say, is there anyone in-house who would like to speak at this public hearing?
Thank you, Mayor Taylor. Ken Garber, 2nd Ward. I don't know if any of you, besides Councilmember Dish, saw the May 7th Planning Commission presentation by Heidi Posher on the Southtown project, but I attend a lot of Planning Commission meetings, and I'd never seen anything like this. It was really unique. She described the building as a self-regulating microgrid, no connection to DTE power, geothermal wells and heat pumps, powered by rooftop solar and by 2 hydrogen fuel cells backed up by battery storage. Project aims for 60 to 75% less carbon intensity, defined as carbon released per unit energy expended than with DTE. Also plans to capture any CO2 and sell it or sequester it. The building aims to be carbon negative with on-site and upstream carbon emissions documented in an annual report to the city. All of this offered voluntarily in the development agreement before you tonight. I support it. When it was first approved, this was an all-electric project with no gas. Now it wants to hook up to gas, but not electric. That sounds like regression, but it's not. As you may know, fuel cells use oxygen to strip electrons from hydrogen to generate an electric current with water as waste product. Clean hydrogen, which you get from splitting water, is a scarce and expensive commodity. Plants know how to do it very well, but we haven't quite figured out the trick. Southtown found a company called Hyaxion that can extract hydrogen from methane, which I didn't know could be done economically at small scale. The gas line supplies methane to these devices. That methane will be from anaerobically digested food waste or human waste, if available, or if not, captured from landfills and supplied by DTE. This solution is not perfect. Methane in the supply chain leaks, and extracting hydrogen from methane causes carbon emissions. And carbon capture has issues. But this plan could conceivably get to zero carbon. At least we'll know, because they'll be accountable. That's in contrast to most developers, except for Heidi and Marge Posher, who I don't know, and Matt Grokoff and Matt Selby. I've never heard a single developer here take any responsibility for climate change whatsoever. Instead, we see them erect their steel and concrete towers, usually heated with gas, and our city's climate goals get trashed. Projects like Southtown and Viridian need to be the rule, not the exception. There's tremendous resistance to change in the developer community. We see it every month at Planning Commission. Southtown is a welcome exception, and we need to learn from it. Start by requiring emissions reporting like Southtown's doing, so that other developers at least measure and account for the planetary destruction they're causing. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in House who'd like to speak at this? Come on up.
Hello, everyone. I'm Brandon Kulo. I'm just one of the residents of where Southtown is going. Got the notice in the mail and honestly came to say great portions about what this man just illustrated extremely well on, about the microgrid portions of the project. And without reiterating everything he said, I think he phenomenally well illustrated it all. So I just came here to show that as a resident, I think that it's a excellent project and that I very highly support it. And I thought it was being up to vote today, but when I originally came here, so I was just kind of showing support to get it passed. But I'm actually really excited it is passed already. So that's basically it. Yeah. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. Is there anyone else in House who would like to speak at this public hearing? Is there anyone online who would like to speak at this public hearing?
Mayor, we do have a couple callers online. Adam Goodman, do you have a comment?
Yes, good evening. This is Adam Goodman. I'm speaking to you from the 5th Ward. So I think the Southtown project is great, and I think this microgrid proposal makes it even more exciting for all the reasons Mr. Carver articulated better than I can. So I do hope you'll approve this tonight. However, I think it's kind of a problem that this is even before you at all. So to rewind a bit, the initial staff report for Southtown said that C1AR zoning was, broadly speaking, appropriate for this site. And I think when it comes to zoning, the conversation should have really started and ended there. If we have a zoning category that's appropriate, let's use it. But what happened was some planning commissioners, including Councilmember Gish, indicated they would be unwilling to recommend approval without additional conditions around electrification and a couple other things. So naturally, the developer came back and offered those conditions. They're planning to do all these things, and that was the zoning that was adopted. And the ordinance that was adopted was a persnickety restricted and project-specific ordinance. But then, things changed. The developers had to change the plan, apparently, and, the new plan appears to be actually better than the old plan, but it doesn't comply with the previously adopted restrictive and persnickety zoning ordinance. So now, we've had to go through the entire rezoning process again, 3 votes, 2 public hearings, months of delay, and a lot of extra work for staff in order to accommodate that positive change. If the initial Southtown rezoning had included overly specific conditions about energy sources, then the developer would have been free to make this change without all this red tape. Recently, you all passed a series of resolutions to streamline our development process, to better enable the city to address our housing and climate crises. This project is exemplary on both fronts, yet it's repeatedly gotten buried in bureaucratic quagmires of their own making. Now, to be clear, I'm not arguing that this sort of rezoning of conditions is illegal or improper, as some other people have. I think that particular argument is ludicrous and incomprehensible. I merely think this is bad public policy that directly contradicts the goals that you all have set for yourselves. This approach, where we seem to be trying to make every single development get a tailor-made and heavily restricted zoning district, is no way to achieve the scale of change that our city requires to solve its most urgent problems. Now, unfortunately, with all that said, my understanding is that you only have two choices tonight, to approve or reject the change proposed by the developers.
30 seconds.
Approve it, but I hope that in the future you'll take steps to avoid getting into this sort of situation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Caller with the phone number ending in 194, do you have a comment? Go ahead.
Hello, this is Reading this. So calling from Ward 5 in Ann Arbor. I want to remind us that Ann Arbor does not exist in a vacuum. I appreciate that the Southtown site proposal for innovative design and plans for energy efficiency, solar, geothermal, mass timber construction, and all electric appliances. It's unique and forward-looking in our area of climate crisis. And I want to thank Heidi Kosher and the Southtown team for responding to feedback to remove animal manure and methane as a source of energy for the fuel cell proposed for electricity production on this project site. The revised amendment now excludes use of factory farm animal manure to obtain methane, a big improvement, and much appreciated as a way to avoid serious, wide-ranging environmental harm associated with factory farms that occurs outside the village of Ann Arbor. My remaining concern has to do with modified amendments to the development agreement. First, the term renewable natural gas, RNG, has meaning by state law and can include animal manure waste as a component of the methane produced. As such, animal manure methane could be included in DTE-sourced methane. To remain true to the goal of avoiding animal manure methane, RNG from DTE would have to be excluded, and I hope that that would be the final result. The multiple nested if statements in the amendment remain. The statements indicate either a lack of particular resources for energy or a variable availability of such resources. Today, methane from human and food waste is not available. Green and blue hydrogen are not available. That leaves DTE fossil methane as a fuel source for the project on Blue Tank, as written in the agreement. My recommendation with respect to methane is to 1. Acknowledge methane as a greenhouse gas regardless of whether it initiates from human or food waste or from fossil fuels. 2. Require ongoing monitoring of pipeline leakage from source to point of use. 3. Confirm use of biodigester source that is exclusively processes only human and food waste, and to exclude DTE, RNG, methane. 4. Require that any methane used that is labeled RNG excludes animal manure as a source.
30 seconds.
5. Incorporate these specifications in the amendment to the site plan and ongoing reporting that are proposed. I appreciate the plan for the ongoing reporting and accountability for use of energy. As proposed, it would be all electric within the walls of buildings, but will be powered by methane. And so it really is a gas-powered project. Again, a squad of choice to exclude an animal manure-based methane as a power source, and after careful avoidance of its use from that obtained from DTE.
Thank you.
Alex Lowe, do you have a comment? Go ahead.
Hi, this is Alex Lowe calling in from 3340 Fenwood Avenue. Mr. Goodman has already summarized most of my thoughts pretty well, so I'll refer you back to his comments. But I want to reiterate one particular piece. The feels like it's micromanagement on the zoning front, and that I find to be quite counterproductive to what we as a city should be doing. But this actually goes in general to the way that we do zoning. Our zoning code is overly complex, and these sorts of one-offs only make things worse, not better. We already have layers upon layers upon layers of stuff, and not only did this one project get delayed by several months just because of the city's micromanagement, but this is only one example of how the micromanagement in our zoning code is causing the delay or even cancellation of many other projects, especially these sorts of missing middle and infill projects that the City Council hoped to achieve by doing things such as the ADU ordinance. All of these little things add up, and if anyone's wondering why we only get big projects and not small infill here and a small infill there, why we had empty lots that have been sitting there empty and ready to build for over a decade, it's because of the sort of micromanagement. Please, let's stop that.
Thank you.
Mayor, I don't see any other callers online with their hands up.
Seeing no one further, this public hearing is closed. Public hearing number 2, resolution to approve the 2862 Stone School Road annexation, 2.65 acres, 2862 Stone School Road. Is there anyone in-house who would like to speak at this public hearing? Is there anyone online who would like to speak at this public hearing?
Mayor, I don't have anyone online for this hearing.
Seeing no one, this public hearing is closed. Public hearing number 3, resolution to approve the 3801 Stone School Road annexation, 3 acres, 3801 Stone School Road. Is there anyone in-house who would like to speak at this public hearing? Is there anyone online who would like to speak at this public hearing?
Mayor, I don't have any callers online for this hearing.
Seeing no one, this public hearing is closed. Public hearing number 4, resolution to approve the State Street Business Improvement Zone. Is there anyone in-house who would like to speak at this public hearing?
Good evening. My name is Phil Santer with Ann Arbor Spark. I wanted to outline the proposal for a business improvement zone for the State Street area. In case you're not familiar, a BIZ acts like a special assessment district funded by property owners to make targeted investments into a specific neighborhood. As you know, Ann Arbor is a net importer of people every day, and we want those entering our city to feel like they're arriving in a vibrant and well cared for area. One major entrance to Ann Arbor is the I-94 and State Street exit, which was the impetus for considering a BIZ in that area. The proposed BIZ will encompass Eisenhower and State Street, extending down to I-94, reaching north to Oakbrook, and including the Briarwood area. We believe this stretch has tremendous potential for growth and improvement, as I know all of you do as well. This proposal builds on the success of the Main Street Biz in Ann Arbor, as well as business improvement zones in Detroit and Grand Rapids, and a growing number of other communities. The planned improvements for the State Street Biz could include increased maintenance of common areas to keep the neighborhood clean and inviting, enhanced medians with greenery and better design elements, installation of welcoming signs and visuals at the city's entrance, and improved walkability to make the area more pedestrian friendly. We've developed the plan over the past several years in close collaboration with property owners in the area. And as a reminder, the city can designate a member of the Biz Board to serve as a liaison with city efforts. I'm pleased to note that some of the property owners supporting this initiative are here tonight and underscoring the broad-based support for this biz. I want to thank the City Council and everyone here for your time and consideration. We're optimistic that this biz will transform State Street area and contribute to Ann Arbor's growth, and we look forward to your support. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Jeff Hauptman with Oxford, and thank you for this opportunity. State and Eisenhower Corridor is one of our most active thoroughfares. It's the main entrance to our town, and it has the largest population of office and retail. However, it really needs some attention. Exhibit A. This is a photo of Eisenhower. Those little yellow dots, dandelions, covered with weeds. Okay, but it's probably better than the asphalt-covered medians along State Street. You choose. We can do better. The biz will facilitate better wayfinding, public art, and landscaping. But beyond the aesthetic issues, the biz is going to bring organization to an otherwise really detached area. It helps to create a neighborhood. Council, you had the foresight to rezone this area TC1, and in doing so, you created the opportunity to build thousands of units of much-needed housing. The biz will help support this plan by giving a unified voice to a variety of scattered commercial properties, a voice that will support your efforts to improve the housing and transportation needs of Ann Arbor. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Kevin Norris. I live in Ward 1, but since 2001, I've worked at this location out here in Ward 4, where State and Eisenhower is. I'm speaking tonight for the owners of the 789 East Eisenhower building. We constructed 789 at State and Eisenhower nearly 20 years ago to house the hundreds of employees of ProQuest, now Claravit, who wanted to remain part of this community. And after looking at properties all over this region, we chose this southwest gateway to Ann Arbor because we thought it had such promise as a place for our people to work and to live. While the work part of that equation has worked out fabulously for us, the living part has just not lived up to its potential. Your designation of these blocks as TC1 really can be a catalyst for the kind of growth that we've always wanted to see there. By focusing on this transit corridor, where the buses are already running, where there's already retail, we think it can be much more efficient, much more environmentally responsible, and have the kind of development that we all really, really want. However, buildings alone won't make a community. It has to be a place where people want to live. And the request before you today is to let us add on-the-ground momentum to your policy efforts. Approving the petition will allow the local property owners to rally together toward an enhanced experience for the residents, shoppers, and workers, whether they're driving or they're pedestrians. By offering to invest in this part of the city to create a real look and feel of part of Ann Arbor, we want to grow the identity of State and Eisenhower as a recognizable part of town, and to make it much more welcoming even as its population increases. So we encourage you to approve the proposed business improvement zone so that we can all pull together toward this shared goal. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in House who would like to speak at this public hearing? Is there anyone online who would like to speak at this public hearing?
Alex Lowe, do you have a comment?
Hi, this is Alex Lowe calling in from East Ann Arbor. Just wanted to say I am mildly skeptical of this, just because the very people who are now coming to you are also the people who are responsible for, or the successors of the people who are responsible for a lot of the terrible land use that we currently see there, directly or indirectly. But so I will be watching this carefully as it passes. But I do really hope that this is something that will help to take this new TC1 area and accelerate it massively, and make it a proper new area for Ann Arbor. So look forward to seeing what happens. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor, I don't have any other callers online with their hands raised.
Seeing no one, this public hearing is closed. We have before us the regular meeting minutes of July 1, 2024. May I have a motion, please, to approve these minutes? Moved by Councilmember Watson, seconded by Councilmember Medina. Discussion of the minutes. All in favor? All opposed? The minutes are approved. B1, an ordinance to amend the zoning map being part of 5.10.2 of Chapter 55 of Title 5 of the Code of the City of Ann Arbor of 1.7 acres from C1AR with 2023 conditions, Campus Business Residential, to C1AR with 2024 conditions, Campus Business Residential, Southtown rezoning. Moved by Councilmember Medina, second by Councilmember Dish. Discussion, please, of B1. Councilmember Dish.
Well, it's great to have a science writer in the room. So we have a real expert. This is an innovative project on the cutting edge of a rapidly changing field of energy technology. And proof of that is that we are looking at a zoning change already before it has broken ground. I think that change has been detailed well in our previous meeting and tonight. This building will still be all electric, but it will be producing its own electricity through its own microgrid that will be composed of a fuel cell, 2 geothermal systems, solar, and batteries. The microgrid will need a natural gas connection to power its fuel cell. So what this amendment does is it allows as we, I think, all understand here, it allows the project to run its own fuel cell, and it establishes an emission standard that requires the development to generate 60% fewer greenhouse gas emissions than would be generated if DTE supplied electricity to the project. A standard, however, only counts as a standard if it can be verified. Hold on one second. Was there not a staff introduction for this? Oh, no, it's for the development agreement. Sorry, I think. I did, okay, it was for one or the other. I will keep going since there's no other head popping up, and there are many heads shaking. Staff has given us a staff response memo that explains how they will be able to verify this standard. But I do want to be transparent about the issues that are involved. Concerns have been raised about underreporting of emissions associated with methane fuel generated by agricultural dairy farming. And there are two ways of factoring those emissions reductions for the creation of that fuel. One is a report prepared for the state by a consultant, which may not fully take into account the differing carbon intensities among differently sourced RNG, which can, as we've heard, be sourced from dairy farming, it can be sourced from human waste, it can be sourced from solid waste landfill gas. So there's also, we can just rely on DTE's reporting. It will be providing the RNG, and that RNG may be a blend of any or all. It may be a blend of all of those sources or some combination of them. And we were able to understand, I think we are able to get good enough numbers. Some uncertainty will remain. Some, if you want, complicity with a form of energy production that we are not comfortable with, which would be RNG from industrial agriculture, will be happening. But we are in a time of transition. So what do you expect?
Further discussion? Councilor Ackman.
I just wanted to highlight the changes, the information that staff provided in the memo gives me confidence that we are thinking through how we're going to look at the reporting on this for meeting the 65% threshold. So anyway, part of my concern before was our ability to actually measure the reduction. I feel confident now about that. I think that this project has a lot of innovative aspects in particular, and I'm looking forward to learning from it. That's it. Thanks.
Further discussion? For my part, I'm excited to have this project move forward and grateful for the work done by petitioner. We do indeed look for innovation as best we can, and we have a great deal of it here. It's going to, I believe, be an important development for our community. I'm glad that we are able here today to do our modest part of moving it forward. Further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? It is approved. DB1, resolution to approve the 2862 Stone School Road annexation, 2.65 acres, 2862 Stone School Road. Moved by Councilmember Radina, seconded by Councilmember Dish. Discussion, please, of DB1. All in favor? Opposed? It is approved. DB2, resolution to approve the 3801 Stone School Road annexation, 3 acres, 3801 Stone School Road. Moved by Councilmember Adina, seconded by Councilmember Ghazi Edwin. Discussion of DB2. All in favor? Opposed? It is approved. DS1, resolution to approve the State Street Business Improvement Zone. Moved by Councilmember Cornell, seconded by Councilmember Iyer. Discussion, please, of DS1. Councilmember Iyer.
Thank you. Just a quick comment to say I really support this. I think this is exactly the type of innovative change we're looking for that really supports the redevelopment and the transformation that I expect we'll see in this area over the next few years as TC1 takes shape in the form of new housing, in the form of a transformation of the entire area into, if it all comes to fruition, a new little mini downtown. And in order to really realize that, we need to have, a welcoming entrance and exit to the area. And that is what this biz zone will seek to create. It is supportive of our economic development resolutions that we passed in the sense of placemaking and creating a space that will attract new development, new housing, new retail to the area. And I am grateful for the vision that's being presented to us, and the willingness of the folks who have property in that area to want to put this together. So very supportive of it, and hope my colleagues will be as well.
Councilmember Cornell.
Thank you, and thank you to Councilmember Iyer. You said a lot of what I wanted to say. We see a model for biz that works downtown. It's actually it actually enhances what the city could accomplish on its own. So when you're walking over by State Street and you see the planter boxes full and looking beautiful, the biz is actually taking care of that. They're taking care of alleyways, and ultimately these businesses are in a way taxing themselves to beautify the area around them, and we all benefit for it. And so if the model that works well downtown works in this new biz district, I'm really excited for what can come of it. I wanted to acknowledge an earlier caller who mentioned being interested in watching and how this rolls out. And I do think for my part that the businesses bringing this forward on their own, the support that they have for it within their own business area, I think is an acknowledgement that the area does need improvement, and they are willing to take ownership of that and partner with the city to do it. And when we look at what a public-private partnership can do, I hope to see this become a model for our city and maybe other areas within it. Thank you.
Further discussion? For my part, I'm very excited about this. As has been observed, this particular gateway to our city has many opportunities for improvement, and I am confident that the newly formed biz will seize that opportunity and improve it. And for that, I am grateful, and I expect many folks in the community will observe its improvement. And probably give us the credit, frankly. But, we get blamed for things that aren't our fault a lot. So, maybe we'll take a little bit of undeserved credit as well. But when pressed, we will, of course, observe that it will be the good work of the biz. Further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? It is approved. DS2, resolution to approve the First Amendment to Southtown Development Agreement 1601 South State Street. Moved by thank you, Councilmember Dish. Seconded by Councilmember Cornell. Discussion, please, of DS2. We have the aforementioned introduction.
Good evening, council members. I believe Ms. Leo is joining as well.
Ms. DeLeo is joining in just a second.
You're up, Ms. DeLeo. Just going to say, I have a feeling that I'm supposed to be joining right now. Thank you, council members. I'm going to set the stage for you for this resolution to approve the First Amendment to the Southtown Development Agreement. Development agreements are documents that lay out precisely how you need to meet a standard. They can either go above and beyond code, or when there's a variety of ways to address code, then we pick the one in particular that we want for this particular site. And in this case, for the Southtown project, and the unique way that they're going to meet their code requirement to be 60 to 75, insert correct number because it's a little late, better than the incumbent electricity provider. The way we want to do it is spelled out in the development agreement. In all development agreements, there is a paragraph that's included that says the obligations and conditions on the developer shall be binding on any successors and assigns in ownership of the parcel. It can run for a long time. It runs with the site plan. The site plan can be renewed. The site plan and the rights to it and the parcel can be sold, and it will remain with that project. It does go away if the site plan never comes to fruition. The zoning, however, remains with the land. But if the development agreement somehow goes away, also the site plan does. And they'll be back, whoever will be back before you, and we'll do this over again. So that's some background about how the development agreement mechanics work, and then specific to the provisions, I'll hand it over to Dr. Missy Stoltz.
Thank you very much, and thank you, council members, for the opportunity to be here tonight. I'm going to draw your attention to a few different things in the development agreement. The first amendment to the Southtown Development Agreement includes provisions P21, which requires the installation of a fuel cell and operating it until up to 2035 with renewable natural gas produced specifically from biodigestion sourced from human or food waste. This is a change from discussion, and this is now in the agreement itself. If commercially available. If not, then it would be with renewable natural gas sourced and reported as, I believe Councilmember Dish was talking about, and in the staff memo we talked about the methodology for reporting. The agreement also includes P22, which states that after January 1st, 2035, the fuel cell must be operated with green hydrogen if commercially available, and if not with blue hydrogen if available, and if not with RNG. The agreement also includes P23, and this states that the development must incorporate carbon capture technology as soon as available, with end use of that captured carbon dioxide through either permanent sequestration, like in the ground, something long-term, hundreds of years term sequestration, or offtake into food-grade CO2 markets, like bubbly waters that we might have. Second, P24 of the agreement specifies that as soon as commercially viable, the developer must transition to hydrogen power and carbon capture technology, agnostic to the dates I told you before. So if either of those things are available before 2035 commercially, they have to make the transition to those fuel tanks. There's also P25, drawing your attention to that quickly, and I'm almost done, requires annual reporting. And this is the data that's specified in this, is the data that we need to be able to calculate and verify the 60 to 75% reduction for base case emissions. Finally, P26 discusses the carbon offsets and the characteristic of those offsets that the petitioner would have to purchase if they miss the mark in the 60 to 75% reduction. And this is really important because those are the values that you see in the energy criteria and characteristics that council adopted. I'll stop there, other than to say if they don't produce those offsets, they have to pay so we can, and those offsets are the things like additional. They are new offsets. This is not buying something cheaply on a market that's displacing other carbon offsets. These are real substantive additional reductions in carbon that the petitioner would be required to meet, and we have to verify those purchases. Thank you.
Thank you. Further discussion of DS2? All in favor? Opposed? It's approved. C1, an ordinance to amend Chapter 55 zoning, rezoning of 7.65 acres from R4A multifamily district to R4D multifamily district with the condition that a maximum height is 75 feet. Owl Creek Phase 2 rezoning 3380 Nixon Road, moved by Councilmember Dish, seconded by Councilmember Harrison. Discussion, please, of C1. Councilmember Dish.
I'll just give a few brief details on this project. This is an infill project at Owl Creek. It's Owl Creek Phase 2, which is 3380 Nixon. It's right on the boundary of Wards 1 and 2. It's in Ward 2, but it is on the boundary. And the proposal is to rezone the property from R4A to R4D. And the zoning, a condition is attached to the zoning that the building height should be capped at 75 feet. And that's the only condition. The project will add 131 housing units, studio 1 and 2 bedroom apartments, in a building that will be on the site of Owl Creek Phase 1. So that's what makes it, again, as I said, an infill project. There are currently 3 3-story apartment buildings on the property, and adding this building would bring the unit total on site to 395 units. The developer is designing a very tight envelope for energy conservation, and this should also help with sound mitigation, even though it's not intended for that. But that's a bonus, given the proximity to Highway 23. They have also, this is a nice feature, committed to an all-electric building achieved by cold weather heat pumps and rooftop solar. They will be held to this commitment by a condition on the site plan, not a condition on the zoning. Those are easier to change. And DTE reports that it has the capacity in this part of the city to electrify this project. So I think there's nothing to hold us from, or from my perspective, there's nothing to delay us from sending this forward on first reading, and looking forward to seeing it again in about a month.
Further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? It is approved. DC1, resolution to enhance Ann Arbor Police Department training on hate crimes prevention, investigation, and response. Moved by Councilmember Harrison, second by Councilmember Gaziadwan. Discussion, please, of DC1. Councilmember Harrison.
Thank you, Mayor. Ann Arbor is a city where innovation, inclusivity, and diversity intersect, creating a culture of progress. Our community thrives on the principle of mutual respect, understanding, and unity. However, to truly maintain our position as a progressive leader, we must confront and address all challenges that threaten these values, especially hate crimes. Hate crimes not only harm people, but also seek to undermine the very fabric of our society by instilling fear and division. As a community that prides itself on being inclusive and welcoming to all, we cannot stand by and allow such acts of hate to persist. It is our collective responsibility to ensure that every resident, regardless of their race, religion, gender, or background, feels safe and valued in Ann Arbor. Addressing the issue of hate crimes requires a multifaceted approach that includes education, community engagement, and robust law enforcement strategies. Our local law enforcement plays a pivotal role in this endeavor, working tirelessly to protect our community and uphold justice. Their efforts can help prevent hate crimes by responding effectively when they occur and fostering an environment where such acts are unequivocally condemned. Thank you.
Further discussion? Councilor Ryer.
Thank you. Thank you to Councilmember Harrison for bringing this forward and for your eloquent comments. And to Councilmember Gaziadwan for co-sponsoring as well. I was happy to co-sponsor it. I just want to add that we're asking for this, at least from my perspective, not because we think that the department isn't currently hasn't made this a priority or has done something, hasn't done a good job with this issue in the past. But it's an affirmation of our values as council members, that this is something that we're very concerned about happening in our community. It is on the rise here, as it is in so many other places as well. And it's important to me that we do everything that we can to make sure that our department is just has the absolute best training possible on this issue, so that we can try to prevent these crimes from occurring in the first place. That's really the goal. So thank you. I'm glad to support this tonight.
Just wanted to thank the co-sponsors for bringing this forward. I agree this is an important resolution. As others have noted, hate and extremism is on the rise across the United States. Black Americans are experiencing the most frequent attacks. And we know that this last year we've seen an alarming increase in anti-Semitic and anti-Arab hate crimes, both locally and nationally. Statistics show that tracking hate crimes continues to be a challenge due to underreporting by law enforcement agencies across the U.S. and also by victims. And so for us to really focus our energies in making sure that we are, turning to the latest data and prioritizing this type of training for our department and espousing what our values are in the community, I think is really important. So appreciate folks bringing this forward and would love to be added as a co-sponsor.
Councilmember Gaziadwan.
I do, excuse me, I want to thank Councilmember Harrison as well as Iyer, working collaboratively on this. As I think they've both eloquently stated, and Councilmember Briggs as well, we just want to really ensure that we are in alignment with our priority for, justice and respecting dignity for all, Chief Anderson, I really appreciate the commitment that you brought into the city, and you talked about this just as you assumed your role as chief, about how you wanted to really work collaboratively in a way with the city to really understand our human rights. And that's another part of this, is as one of the liaisons of the Human Rights Commission, I also hope that we can in some way work collaboratively with them and just educating our city about Chapter 112 or our non-discrimination ordinance, and how it's really a part of, our policies as well as our policing. So, thank you.
Councilmember Redina.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you to the co-sponsors and Councilmember Harrison, the primary sponsor here, on bringing this forward. In my previous life as president of the Jim Toy Center, this is something that we worked with the local department on, and also with the FBI hate crimes unit, and so I know that we are continuing to evolve and improve, and as those things take place, making sure that our training is up to date and continuing to be on the forefront is critically important. And so I appreciate this coming forward as a continued statement of our values in that way, but also to Chief Anderson's commitment to continuing to move our department in that direction as well. I know that similarly in one of my first conversations with him, I know that one of the things that was really important to him was being, introduced to the new leaders of the Jim Toy Center and other members of the LGBTQ community in particular in that conversation with me. And so I appreciate that our department continues to move in that direction and continues to make sure that those values are at the forefront. And so if I may, I would also like to be added as a co-sponsor. Thank you.
Councilmember Watson.
I'd like to thank Councilmember Harrison and the co-sponsors for bringing this tonight. I want to note that in my time on council, there have been multiple hate crimes and multiple events in my ward. And each time I've corresponded with the chief and also seen some very quick response also from other service units, including parks, for example. I believe, this has to be an ongoing commitment. We have to be making sure we're up to date in all the ways we combat hate crimes. And I think there's always that attention on response and especially healing in the community, because we know that these events can just cause broad-based feelings of essentially insecurity and unwantedness, perhaps. So I'm grateful that the city is showing its commitment to this, and I'd like to be added as a co-sponsor, please.
Further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? It is approved. Do we have the pleasure today of a closed session?
No, thank you, Mayor.
We have before us the clerk's report of communications, petitions, and referrals. May I have a motion, please, to approve the clerk's report moved by Councilmember Cornell, seconded by Councilmember Redina. Discussion of the clerk's report. Councilmember Briggs. A discussion of the clerk's report. I'm glad I'm sitting down.
Every once in a while, since we can discuss. I just wanted to point folks to that there was a letter from the Design Review Board, in case you missed it.
Further discussion of the clerk's report. All in favor? Opposed? The clerk's report is approved. Do we have communications today from our city attorney?
No, thank you, Mayor.
In the absence of public comment overflow, may I have a motion to adjourn, please? Moved by Councilmember Cornell, second by Councilmember Iyer. Discussion. On favor? Opposed? We're adjourned.